I think when you are on your home floor and your team's getting announced and the coach is getting announced, I feel like there's no reason for any of that. I mean, we come out here and we do everything that we can to win, and I think Steph does a great job with us. Like, we love her and we appreciate her, and so to hear that, it was really annoying, honestly, and disrespectful.
That right there is the fault line. Aliyah Boston is calling the boos annoying and disrespectful. The fans clearly think the disrespect started somewhere else. And now this is no longer just about whether Stephanie White is doing a good job coaching basketball.
Kelsey, what has Steph meant to this group, and heard the boos the other night, and maybe your reaction to that?
Threw me for a loop too. I told her to her face, I said, Coach, this is for you. In terms of just
Cleveland, this is for you.
a sense of confidence, a sense of awareness of that you're not alone.
Not alone.
If anybody know me, it's like I don't play that. So it's like it really hurt my feelings to see her kind of like have emotions in terms of like not feeling valued and not feeling wanted in a place where she has to coach. At the end of the day, this is her job, and so she has to show too. And I think that people don't really recognize that. And I think that it's our job to remind her. It's our cultures. It's our culture, and I think we have to remind her that our culture is not going to let her.
Kelsey Mitchell makes the emotional case. She saw her coach hurting, told her directly that the team was with her, and says this group has a culture where nobody is supposed to feel alone. That is understandable. Players spend every day with Stephanie White. They practice with her, prepare with her, travel with her, and see parts of the job fans never see. But there is another side of professional sports that this entire situation is forcing Indiana to confront. The relationship inside the building and the relationship with the paying public are not the same relationship. The locker room can love its coach, while a section of the fan base is furious with that same coach. Both things can exist simultaneously, and pay attention to how quickly this moved. First, the boos were the story. Then Caitlin Clark publicly backed White. Now Mitchell and Boston are defending her too. The temperature is rising because each new response makes fans feel like the players are answering the reaction without addressing why that reaction exists. That distinction becomes much more important later, because the real question is not whether the Fever players should defend their coach. Of course they can. The real question is whether defending her changes anything about what caused those boos in the first place.
Welcome to sports, honey. Welcome to sports. If fans aren't satisfied, you know what they're going to do? They're going to voice their displeasure. And those fans in the building, they spent their money, they spent their time, and you know what else they did? They booed your coach because your coach told them all to go to hell. If you're critical of Stephanie White said, go to hell. Stephanie White not sticking up for her players. She said, go to hell. So you know what? Stephanie White's going to get booed. Stephanie White's going to get booed.
And that is the counter-argument in its simplest form. Welcome to sports. Booing is not some strange new phenomenon that suddenly appeared in Indianapolis. Fans boo quarterbacks. They boo managers. They boo general managers. They boo draft picks. They boo owners. They boo entire teams walking into halftime. Sometimes the criticism is deserved. Sometimes it is emotional. Sometimes it is ridiculous. But the basic transaction is ancient. People buy tickets, invest emotionally, and react to what they see. That does not mean every criticism is automatically intelligent. It does mean a professional athlete cannot realistically expect the crowd to behave like an internal support system. The Fever players are saying, essentially, we know this coach personally, and we believe in her. Fans are saying, we judge the product we are watching, and we are allowed to hate what we see. Those standards are completely different, and once the dispute becomes our relationship with her versus your right to criticize her, nobody is actually debating the same thing anymore.
But for us, I mean, we kept the main thing, and we said we're going to come out here and we're going to get that dub.
Are you going to get the dub tomorrow? Hey, if the people in the building boo Stephanie White every single game, are you guys going to get every single dub from here on out?
Boston then ties the moment back to competition. They kept their focus, went out, and handled their business. That is probably the strongest response available to the players, because winning changes conversations faster than press conferences do. If Indiana stacks victories, looks organized, makes a playoff run, and gets healthy at the right time, the noise around Stephanie White becomes much easier to dismiss. Not because the fans lose their right to complain, but because the scoreboard starts making the defense for her. If the opposite happens, though, every post-game answer becomes gasoline. That is why this controversy matters beyond one round of boos. The Fever are now operating under a microscope, where coaching decisions, rotations, player development, injuries, late-game execution, and every public quote are being interpreted through the same argument. White is not being evaluated in a vacuum anymore. She is being evaluated while coaching the most scrutinized team in the league. And when expectations get this high, affection from the locker room is useful, but results become the currency.
To hear that, it was really annoying, honestly, and disrespectful. AB. Hearing your coach to tell you to go to hell is kind of disrespectful and annoying, too. Honestly. Oh, gosh. Yikes. They're going to have to get over it and accept that fans do not like their coach for various reasons. Just because y'all drank the Kool-Aid doesn't mean the fans have to. It is what it is.
This is where the disagreement gets sharper. Boston views the home court booing as disrespectful. The commentary response is that fans believe they were disrespected too. The transcript repeatedly references a previous statement attributed to White telling critics, in effect, to go to hell. That is the piece supporters of the booing keep returning to, because from their perspective this is not random hostility toward a coach having one bad week. They see it as a response to a broader breakdown between the team and part of its audience. Whether you think that reaction is proportionate is a different question. But once a coach, player, or executive enters a public fight with the audience, the power dynamic changes. You are no longer only discussing basketball. You are discussing identity, loyalty, and who gets to define what a real fan is. That is dangerous territory for any franchise. A fan can dislike the coach and still support the players. A fan can criticize rotations and still buy tickets. A fan can boo one decision and cheer a made 30 seconds later. Sports fandom has always been contradictory like that. The mistake would be treating criticism as proof that the critic is somehow outside the community. Because if the Fever turn this into players versus fans, everybody loses.
All of a sudden, everyone on the Fever knows how to open their mouth and condemn stuff. Interesting. Ooh. Ooh. Hey, you're noticing, huh? Welcome to professional sports. Fans boo the coach when they're doing a dog shit job. The WNBA ain't surviving a team in Philly, man. These players are not cut out for it. Well. If it isn't the consequences of your own actions. You know what I hear every time these players come out and speak about Stephanie White getting...
And there is another reason this is becoming explosive. Some fans believe the team suddenly discovered its public voice when the subject became Stephanie White. That is a perception, not an objective fact, but perceptions drive sports controversies. When several prominent players publicly defend the same coach within a short period, supporters see unity. Critics see an organized wall forming around someone they already distrust. Same evidence, completely different interpretation. This is also where social media makes everything worse. A 30-second answer that might once have lived for one news cycle is clipped, reposted, captioned, and argued over by people who may not have watched the entire game. Then the response becomes another clip. The response to the response becomes another story. Eventually, the original issue almost disappears. And the Fever are especially vulnerable to this because their audience has expanded far beyond traditional WNBA fans. You now have people following this team with the intensity normally associated with major market NFL or NBA franchises. That brings enormous benefits. It also brings a completely different level of accountability. More attention means more applause when things work. It also means louder boos when they do not.
No time.
It's not about, Tony. You guys can point the finger at him. You can talk about the vacation. And if you do that, it's really unfair. It's really unfair. It's my team. It's my quarterback. And if you guys do that, man, it's unfair.
It's unfair.
We lost as a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
We lost as a team, man.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, welcome to sports, ladies of the...
That old Terrell Owens moment works here because the emotion is almost identical. A player sees criticism coming towards somebody inside the group and instinctively protects them. That is what teammates do. And I do not think Mitchell or Boston deserve criticism simply for showing loyalty. Imagine the opposite. Imagine they were asked about White being booed and responded, "Yeah, the fans are right. She deserves it." That locker room would explode. So from a team dynamics perspective, these answers make perfect sense. But public support should not be confused with proof that the criticism is wrong. Players can love a coach who ultimately gets fired. Players can hate a coach who ultimately wins. Coaches can have excellent relationships with veterans and poor relationships with younger players. Fans can misdiagnose tactical problems. Front offices can misdiagnose them too. Professional sports are filled with situations where the people closest to the environment saw one reality, and the standings eventually revealed another. That is why the only useful question is not, do the players like Stephanie White? Clearly, based on these statements, major players do. The useful question is, does that belief translate into a team that performs at the level its talent and expectations demand? And now we are getting closer to the heart of the entire dispute.
Damn, Sophie is literally the only gal with a brain on this team. Ask Ubisoft and EA how they're doing now after going against their customers and fan base. Wow, exactly. You'll get over it and worry more about your fans who can go to hell. Damn! Yeah, they don't really like us that much, huh? They're not fans of us. They're not fans of us.
The comment section pushes the argument into another direction. Customer versus product. That comparison can be crude because a sports franchise is not the same thing as a video game publisher or normal consumer brand. Fans do not simply switch emotional allegiance because they dislike one season. But there is still a business lesson underneath it. You never want your most engaged customers feeling like their investment is being mocked. Indiana has something every professional sports organization dreams about. People care intensely. They watch, they argue, they travel, they buy merchandise. They analyze substitutions. They remember quotes from weeks earlier. They treat regular season games like events. That emotional investment is incredibly valuable. The downside is that you cannot turn around and demand only the pleasant half of it. You cannot say, "Bring the passion when we hit a game winner, but please leave the passion at home when you hate the coaching." The same intensity produces both reactions. And this is the part where both sides would benefit from separating criticism from abuse. Booing a coach is normal sports behavior. Personal harassment, threats, or crossing boundaries is not. Those two things should never be deliberately blurred together. Because once ordinary criticism gets categorized with genuinely unacceptable behavior, fans stop believing the organization is listening at all.
Here's Aliyah Boston telling everybody that Kelsey Mitchell's the MVP of the team, of the league.
AB, I'm not sure how much more you can say, but when you see Kelsey, who already is one of the best scorers in the world, get to this level, what does that say about her work ethic and the way she's playing?
Yeah, Kelsey comes in here and she works every day. I mean, she gets up extra shots. She just comes in and does what she needs to do. And I think, honestly, she's really just the MVP. Like, I think that's just what she's been doing. Every single night you see her come out and she drops, I don't even know how many points at this rate. She defends.
There you guys go. AB calling Kelsey Mitchell the MVP.
Now this clip introduces another fascinating wrinkle. Aliyah Boston is asked about Kelsey Mitchell and goes straight to MVP language. She praises the work, the extra shots, the scoring, and the nightly consistency. On its own, that is teammates supporting teammates. Nothing unusual there. But place it next to everything else happening, and you can see the fever closing ranks. Boston backs Mitchell, Mitchell backs White, Clark has backed White. The public message is unmistakable. This group wants everybody to know it believes in the people inside that locker room. That is powerful if the team starts winning. It becomes complicated if the team struggles, because then fans are going to ask whether internal loyalty is preventing honest evaluation. And that is the tension nobody can resolve with one quote. A healthy team should have strong bonds. Players should believe in each other. Coaches should have the trust of veterans. But championship environments also require brutal self-assessment. You have to be able to say, I love this person, and this decision was wrong. Those statements are not mutually exclusive. The strongest organizations understand that distinction.
We have hit an impasse, folks. We've hit an impasse. Do these players not know that Stephanie White's not liked out on these streets? Do they not know? They have to know because they're chronically online. So of course they knew. But I guess hearing the boos woke them up like, damn, it's not just the online. It's not just people online booing us. People that actually come to these games, they're booing us too. Damn. We had Caitlin Clark defend Stephanie White the game after. It made me sick.
Remember this part from earlier. The commentary argues that the players must have known the criticism existed online, but hearing it physically inside the arena changed the feeling. That is probably true at a human level. Scrolling past angry posts is one thing. Standing during introductions while thousands of people make their opinion audible is different. Suddenly the controversy is not trapped on a phone screen. It is in your building. That matters psychologically. And it also explains why so many players are responding now. The boos made the disagreement impossible to treat like internet noise, but this is also the moment where the organization has a choice. It can interpret the noise as an enemy attack and dig deeper into an us versus them posture. Or it can recognize that some portion of the audience is trying, however bluntly, to communicate dissatisfaction. You do not have to agree with that dissatisfaction to acknowledge it exists. And if Indiana wants the temperature lowered, somebody eventually has to address the substance rather than just the tone. Why are fans frustrated? Which complaints are fair? Which are exaggerated? What does the organization believe White is doing well? Where does it believe she can improve? Those answers are more useful than another argument over whether booing itself is polite. Because sports crowds were never hired to be polite.
A sense of confidence, a sense of awareness of that you're not alone. If anybody know me, it's like I don't play that. It's like it really hurt my feelings to see her kind of like have emotions in terms of like not feeling valued and not feeling wanted in a place where she has to coach. At the end of the day, this is her job, and so she has to show too. And I think that people don't really recognize that. And I think that it's our job to remind her. It's our cultures. It's our culture, and I think we have to remind her that our culture is not going to let her.
Listen carefully to Mitchell again, and you hear something much more personal than a generic endorsement. She talks about confidence, awareness, making sure White knows she is not alone, and seeing her emotions. That tells you the booing landed. Whatever people online think of White, the players saw the human impact in real time, and that deserves to be acknowledged without pretending the fans therefore did something extraordinary. Public figures are still human beings. Coaches have emotions. Players have emotions. Fans do too. The challenge of professional sports is that empathy does not cancel evaluation. A coach can be hurt by boos, and the crowd can still believe those boos are warranted. Mitchell can comfort her, and the fans can still demand better. Those ideas can coexist. The reason this story has become so divisive is that both sides seem increasingly unwilling to grant the other side that basic complexity. Fans hear player support and think they are being lectured. Players hear boos and think the audience has forgotten how hard everybody is working. But effort and outcome are different categories. Nobody seriously doubts that these players work. The argument is about whether the team is maximizing what it has. And now we finally reach the payoff behind all of this. The real clash is not Stephanie White versus a few angry fans. It is a fight over who gets to define accountability for the Indiana Fever.
CC, AB, and Kelsey all defended Steph. If you can't see how much they love her and how connected they are, you're not a real fan, and we don't want you in our fan base. Yeah, this is a message to me and all the haters out there. Oh, and AB called Kelsey the MVP. So if you don't agree with that too, you're definitely not welcome here. Yikes.
There it is. If you can't see how much they love her and how connected they are, you're not a real fan. That is the mentality this controversy risks creating, even if those exact words are coming from commentary around the debate, rather than an official Fever statement. And that would be the worst possible direction. Nobody gets to issue a loyalty test to sports fans. You are not required to approve of every coach to support a franchise. You are not required to agree with every player. You are not required to interpret every game the same way. In fact, disagreement is one of the things that makes sports culture work. Fans have argued about coaches, quarterbacks, rotations, contracts, trades, and ownership decisions forever. What separates healthy criticism from toxic behavior is not whether criticism exists. It is how people express it, and whether they can still see the people on the other side as human beings. Indiana's players are completely within their rights to defend Stephanie White. The crowd is completely within its rights to boo her. The front office is completely within its rights to evaluate her differently from both groups. Then the games decide how long each argument survives, and that is where this gets fascinating going forward. If White guides this roster through the pressure, wins games, and has the Fever playing their best basketball when it matters, these boos may eventually become part of the story of a team that rallied around its coach. Mitchell's defense will look meaningful. Boston's frustration will look understandable. Clark's support will look justified. But if the same criticisms continue appearing on the court, nobody will be able to dismiss the boos as a few angry people online anymore. The players have now publicly attached themselves to their coach. That raises the stakes for everyone, because every successful adjustment becomes evidence for their side, and every avoidable mistake becomes evidence for the other. That is not necessarily fair. Professional sports rarely are, but when expectations explode, the standard explodes with them. Indiana wanted the attention that comes with becoming one of the league's biggest attractions. Now it has to manage everything attached to that attention: scrutiny, emotion, criticism, and a fan base that expects answers. The Fever do not need to attack their own supporters. The supporters do not need to personally attack the people wearing Fever uniforms. What they need is something much simpler and much harder. Winning basketball and credible accountability. Because if Indiana wins, the argument changes naturally. If Indiana loses, no press conference is going to silence it. And that leaves the choice with you. Are Kelsey, Mitchell, and Aliyah Boston right that booing Stephanie White on the home floor crossed the line? Or are Fever fans simply doing what sports fans have always done when they believe a coach is not delivering? Pick a side in the comments. Tell me why. Like the video if you enjoyed the breakdown, and subscribe for the next one, because this fight between the Fever locker room and its frustrated fan base does not look finished yet.